I was interested in comparing mythologies from polytheistic, pagan, and pre-Christian societies. I will be comparing Roman, Egyptian, Hindu, Chinese, Greek, Celtic, and Norse mythology. For each, I will be focusing on roughly four categories: primary gods, religious practices, life after death, and notable myths. Instead of creating new gods, the Romans simply borrowed from Greek mythology. Religion was often used as a form of political control by the government, and Roman myths spread over wider populations due to the fact that they spoke Latin as opposed to Greek. The Romans simply renamed Greek gods and changed their stories to fit their needs. Zeus became Jupiter, Hera became Juno, Athena became Minerva, Demeter became Ceres, Apollo stayed as Apollo, Ares became Mars, Aphrodite became Venus, Artemis became Diana, Poseidon became Neptune, Hermes became Mercury, Hephaestus became Vulcan, Dionysus became Bacchus, and Hades became Pluto. In Roman society, priests often held political office. The Romans were also very superstitious and would hold rituals and ceremonies to look at omens of war. They also honored household spirits and ancestors and conducted public worship and sacrifice to gain the favor of the gods. In Greco-Roman mythology, the afterlife was seen as the separation of body and soul, which would then go to one of three places. A heavenly banquet was reserved for those who lived virtuously, Tartarus in the underworld for those who sinned during life, and rest for those that did not lean either way. The core Roman myth is that of Remus and Romulus, twin sons of Mars that were left to die by their father and nursed by a she-wolf. Their adventures eventually led to the death of Remus and the foundation of Rome by Romulus. Another notable myth is that of Castor and Pollux, another set of twins that shared immortality because they could not bear to be apart. Egyptian mythology is very unique due to the fact that Egypt was isolated and virtually untouched by the beliefs of foreign cultures. The Egyptians were sophisticated people that inspired many cultures, even the Greek philosopher Plato. The primary Egyptian gods were Anubis, the god of the dead, Aten, the personification of the sun, Geb, the god of the earth, Hathor, goddess associated with fertility and love, Horus, the sun god and sky god, Isis, the mother goddess, Nut, goddess of the sky, Osiris, god of the underworld, Seth, god of chaos, Thoth, the god of wisdom, and the combination of Amun, the supreme god, and Ra, the sun god, to become Amun-Ra, the creator of the universe. The Egyptians also worshipped their pharaoh as a god, identifying him with Horus. The Egyptians are famous for their rituals of mummification, as well as the construction of pyramids to serve as tombs for their pharaohs. They also practiced animal worship, as shown by the fact that nearly all of the gods are portrayed with animal heads. The Egyptians believed in eternal life after death, which is why they embalmed their rulers to prepare them for their journey to the afterlife. After a person's death, their heart would be weighed to see if they lived a virtuous life on earth. If deemed worthy, the individual would go on to the afterlife, and if not, their heart would be eaten by a beast. Common themes in Egyptian mythology were the struggle between good and evil, the cycles of birth and rebirth, and the judgment of the dead. The core myths of Egyptian mythology included the story of the sun god Ra, who was born each day at dawn and crossed the sky to set and rise again. There is also the myth of Osiris, who was betrayed and killed by his brother Seth, found and saved by his wife Isis, avenged by his son Horus, and appointed as the god of the underworld. Hinduism is an interesting religion due to the constant argument of its status as either polytheistic, monotheistic, or pantheistic. It is still practiced today by over 1.2 billion people around the world. The religion focuses on righteousness and holds reincarnation as one of its core beliefs. The core concepts of Hinduism are dharma, meaning morality, kama, meaning desire, artha, the means of living, karma, a person's destiny based on past actions, and moksha, the liberation from the cycle of rebirth, also known as enlightenment. Although there is said to be only one true god, he is often represented by the primary gods of Brahman the creator, Vishnu the protector, Shiva the destroyer, and Ganesh the leader of Shiva's army. Hindu religious practices include meditation, rites of passage throughout life, annual festivals to honor the gods, and yoga as a type of meditation to achieve enlightenment. Notable Hindu myths include the creation of humans by Shiva from disease, the product of order from chaos, the incarnations of Vishnu on earth, and the birth of Ganesha, who was born to Parvati, the wife of Shiva, and had his head struck off by his father. Upon seeing his wife's grief, Shiva replaced Ganesha's head with that of an elephant. Chinese mythology consists of several different ideologies and was a reflection of society at the time, often blurring the lines between myth and history. The three notable faiths included under the umbrella of Chinese mythology were Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. All three ideologies had some things in common, including the creation of the world out of chaos, the importance of nature, and reverence for ancestors. Confucianism was more of a philosophy than a religion, but Confucius was often referred to as an uncrowned emperor due to his philosophy's popularity. Confucianism did not include any gods and focuses on self-improvement and devotion to elders and ancestors. Taoism emphasized the natural order as well as harmony in the universe. Although little is actually known about the scholar Lao Tzu, he is said to be the author of the main text of Taoism. Taoism also has some animistic beliefs and central figures including Yu Huangti, the Jade Emperor, and the Eight Immortals. Buddhism originated in India through a man named Siddhartha Gautama, who later became Buddha. Buddhism's key concept is that all suffering comes from earthly desire, and the way to happiness is to not desire anything. Buddhists also believe in reincarnation, and although Buddha did not intend for his followers to worship him as a god, they did just that, going as far as to travel on missions to spread the word of Buddha. Greek mythology is set apart by the recognizable passions of the gods, as well as its rich literature, including plays and epics by authors such as Homer and Sophocles. Art and theater also played an important role in Greek society and greatly influenced European culture. The primary gods in Greek mythology were Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, Apollo, the god of the sun, Ares, the god of war, Artemis, the goddess of hunting, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, Hephaestus, the god of the forge, Hera, the protector of marriage and childbirth, Hermes, the messenger of the gods, Poseidon, the god of the sea, Zeus, the god of justice and social order, and Dionysus, the god of wine, as well as Hades, the god of the underworld. The Greeks would often practice the blood sacrifice of animals as offering for the gods in exchange for blessings. The animal being sacrificed would correspond to the god being worshipped. The Celtic people were not defined by a centralized government, but rather bound together by language, customs, and religion. Their mythology often involved magic and the supernatural. The primary deities of Celtic mythology were Bridget, the goddess of learning, healing, and metalworking, Dagda, the god of life and death, Danu, the fertility goddess, Epona, the goddess associated with fertility, water, and death, Lug, the god of the sun, war and healing, and Morrigan, the goddess of war and death. Roman accounts of Celtic beliefs were often confusing, especially because they were enemies on the battlefield. Celtic priests were called druids and often led practices like animal sacrifice as an offering to the gods. The Celts also had no clear concept of good and evil. Examples of religious events include Tarbfest, the bull feast during which the people would select their king, and Samhain, the birth of a new year, during which gods were said to be the most dangerous. Celtic religion had no concept of salvation or damnation, although contradictory accounts and Christian influence distort the concept of an afterlife. The Celtic otherworld was a peaceful concept. There are also myths of the old Sede gods that were forced to live underground, as well as a horned man called Cernunnos that embodied the wild forces of nature, although his portrayal may have been influenced by the Christian devil. Notable Celtic myths include the romantic tragedy of Deirdre, in which a young woman takes her own life after her lover is killed, and of Cuchulainn, the warrior and champion of Ireland, also known as the Hound of Ulster. Norse mythology originated in Scandinavia from the pre-Christian Germanic people. Recurrent themes in their mythology were dark winters, cosmic conflict between the gods, and unalterable fate. Primary deities of Norse mythology were the Aesir, the gods of war in the sky, including Odin, Frigg, Thor, Tyr, Balder, and Loki, and the Vanir, who were associated with the earth and fertility, and included Njord, Freya, and Freyr. Notable creatures include Fenrir, Loki's monstrous wolf offspring, and the Valkyries, warrior maidens of Odin. Ancient Nords were pagans, although we know almost nothing about their religious practices besides the fact that they sacrificed horses and practiced ancestor worship. Two known celebrations were Blot, a sacrificial holiday feast, and Seed, an occasion to interpret omens. Evidence also points to fertility rituals in honor of Freya and Freyr. Norse mythology did not have a concept of salvation or damnation, nor were these things particularly important. However, there are records of two main afterlives, Valhalla and Hel. Valhalla was said to be located in Asgard, the realm of Odin, and was home to warriors that were killed in battle. Hell was located underground, but was entirely different from the Christian hell, as it was not a place of eternal damnation, but simply home to those that had died from peaceful causes. Notable Norse myths included Sigurd, who killed a dragon and awakened one of Odin's Valkyries, as well as Beowulf, who also fought against evil by killing a monster. The themes of Norse myths were often bravery in the face of a harsh fate, as well as order versus chaos. Myths of creation include the story of Ymir, the frost giant whose body was used to form the world, and Yggdrasil, the tree that connected heaven, earth, and the underworld. The myth of Ragnarok, the end of the world, says that Fenrir will break free and the worlds will plunge into war, leading to the destruction of the universe.